All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. Week 5 recap coming up. Got obviously the little preview stuff, a little extra stuff to go along with that. But of course, fifth of the regular full episode type videos. Got a lot to get into, a lot of great games. Both of our teams didn't come away with it this time, so we'll probably have a good amount to talk about. But let's just get right into it. Christian, let's start off with Thursday night.
Let's kick it right away with two teams that are really struggling lately: the Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears. This is another surprising win for not necessarily surprising in a way that we all think, but it's a surprising win especially towards the team they're playing to. I expect it to be closer, but the Chicago Bears got a huge win again. They got a huge win on the road too. A road win for the Chicago Bears, and this is the first win since October of last year. This is a big win for the Bears. DJ Moore was finally getting active. Justin Fields was, finally looking pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna get too carried away. This is the Washington Commanders. That they're a team that whose defense, they get overhyped this offseason. Hasn't been the first time, but Justin Fields, he really locked in the first half with DJ Moore. I mean, DJ Moore, I believe he was the only receiver to catch a pass, I believe, something like that. And the second half, it started to get a little closer. The Chicago Bears, they're starting to, downplay the Commanders a bit. And it was looking like a good comeback for the Commanders, but Sam Howell wasn't able to get the job done. Obviously, with the Bears situation, it's two, with the first game with Justin Fields against the Broncos, played phenomenal. We know how that played out in this game as well. He did amazing. Don't get me wrong, but this is still the Chicago Bears that we're looking at. And as for the Commanders, they're plummeting really down, especially in the East.
Yeah, so moving into Sunday, had another early game in London. So two teams that won their division last year expected a good game. Obviously, I highlighted this one, expected a big win for the Bills. Clearly, the jet lag and the travel to London clearly ended up being a factor. I mean, there was some remarks about the officiating. You kind of expect that in the NFL, of course, as of the last couple of years. But more than anything, with the Jaguars already being there since a week before, they kind of had, a little more rest, time to just situate themselves. So it showed here with, Travis Etienne, first and foremost, had just a career game, of course. Believe he got like 34 points on fantasy. So big game for him. Obviously, the Jaguars have been waiting for him to really get going. And after a pretty disappointing loss last week against Houston, this is kind of the production they wanted to see from all their stars, especially against such a top team in the AFC like the Bills. Overall, for the Bills, it wasn't a bad game. Sure, you're playing a good team, probably more mediocre, of course, than the Jaguars, but still, it wasn't the production we were seeing. I really expected Gabe Davis to get more production, and we clearly see it kind of mostly went to Stephon Diggs, even though near the end he was kind of just, throwing his little tantrums that he often does when things aren't going the Bills' way. But, overall, I wouldn't be too worried about the Bills, and especially seeing kind of another game we're going to talk about too with the Dolphins, how they're looking. I think they're kind of just, still on pace and easily time to regroup, just like they did after the loss to the Jets.
Yeah, and now moving on to another pretty close matchup, which, was kind of expected, but the Houston Texans and the Atlanta Falcons. Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, quarterback, he was looking hot this year. The whole team was finally waking up. Seems to do good on a nice streak that they had. With Atlanta, same thing with them. These two teams are kind of equal in the way. But except, other than quarterback situation. They started off good. The Texans, they started off bad, kind of picked it up a bit, and then, something bad happens, and the same with the Falcons. Started off, good as well. Miscues here and there, but this is exactly what happened in this game. The Houston Texans, obviously, we picked the Texans to win this one, and Atlanta really showed us. Desmond Ridder, we see the complications Desmond Ridder's had this season with him playing the quarterback and how the future of him holds with the Atlanta Falcons. I know how we said before we didn't think he, was going to do a lot, but, this game, sure, could have proved us wrong. But again, with the situation of the Falcons, the defense, stepped up a little bit towards the end when they really needed to. The Houston Texans, they were down like a possession at halftime. towards the end about the fourth quarter, and the Falcons, they couldn't capitalize off the mistakes of the Houston Texans, and the Texans, they obviously couldn't capitalize off their mistakes as well. So it was a very close matchup. Nonetheless, I believe it was 19-18 the final score. So pretty cool 1-point game, pretty close game, especially with CJ Stroud, obviously the front runner of the NFL Rookie of the Year, which is looking good for him. But obviously with the Texans, it should have been a game that they should have won, but CJ Stroud, he was just under pressure. The pressure was really getting to him.
Yeah, so moving to pretty big blowout here. We kind of expected a big win for the Lions here against the Carolina Panthers, but surely couldn't expect it this much. I mean, sure, you see how much I guess progression that Bryce Young has kind of been getting little by little. But of course, the big thing here, we see we see that I mean, they have no wide receiver. That's kind of the biggest deal for them. I mean, they've obviously been in the market for one, and it's been a struggle here. I mean, sure, Adam Thielen, he had a respectable game, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I guess it kind of comes down to it's kind of just been on him, and with no one else really that Young's really been able to get the ball to him. I mean, kind of no run game really getting off for them here. So it's a continued struggle for the Panthers here. I mean, it was more of a blowout to start. I mean, sure, they kind of still got some garbage time points, but regardless, a lot of what's expected, and it's all, I mean, they're the last remaining 0-5 team. The last team that still hasn't gotten a win. So probably still a lot of regrouping, maybe just keep themselves in a position to leave off that number 1 pick. But as for the Lions, more of what we expect. I mean, Jared Goff, just another phenomenal game, over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery, just another great game for him. Of course, that he's kind of shooting himself up on the fantasy leaderboards. Just a really big surprise. Obviously, I was really into trying to get him, but that didn't end up happening. But I mean, just overall, I mean, we expect all this greatness from the Lions little by little, and I mean, even their defense. Like, I know you always love talking about it in the past. They've really been showing out. Sure, of course, the big thing here, it was a great showing against a pretty bad team, but still, it's a lot of positivity to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm moving forward about another team who seems to be declining on the way: the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, they had control over this whole game. I mean, the offense of the Tennessee Titans was just not clicking. Derrick Henry, he obviously, this is the big idea that we've always been going for. If Derrick Henry can get active early on for the Titans they just can't win, because Ryan Tannehill's having a pretty bad year so far with the Titans. He's not doing well. I believe he has 2 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, I believe. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's from my knowledge of what I've saw. But Titans just couldn't get anywhere this whole game at all. Indianapolis, they had the upper hand here. Anthony Richardson starting to look pretty decent, but he did leave the game with, I believe it was a shoulder injury. So time is still yet to tell whether he will be back or not. And Gardner Minshew took the lead for the whole game, and he led him to victory. And Zach Moss, who was filling in for Jonathan Taylor, and as we know, he did come back. Obviously, he did you pretty dirty in fantasy, but like we said, it was gonna be first game back. He's gonna be rusty. Got him a little accustomed, so hopefully, he gets back to the 1 spot. But Zach Moss, he had a great game. The run game for the Colts was going because of him, and that's the reason they were able to take control of this game. The run game from Zach Moss was able to put pressure less on Gardner Minshew, and that's the reason the Indianapolis Colts walked away with this victory, especially with the Tennessee Titans. Their defense is very lacking as we can speak. Sure, early weeks they look pretty okay, but they're starting to decline with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So sooner, like we talked about before, at some point, either Malik Willis or Will Levis, one of them is going to get the start for the season. And as for the Indianapolis Colts, still no update on Anthony Richardson's shoulder injury. So as for now, Gardner Minshew will be leading this team.
Yeah, so moving into the Giants and the Dolphins, I mean, solid win for the Dolphins, don't get me wrong, but the key thing here has to be a really disappointing showing from Tua. I mean, sure, the 2 touchdowns, the 300 yards, but those 2 interceptions were really big and really telling for, what direction he's going into the season. I mean, one of them being a pick 6 and the other one being the interception in his own territory. So it's, 3 points for the Giants. It's a really good for the Dolphins that I mean, this type of performance came against the Giants, a team that really probably wasn't going to be able to capitalize on all these mistakes. But still, to see that they're playing this poorly against this poor of an opposition, it definitely has to be alarming for them. I mean, to see that, I mean, sure, everyone overall did get good production. I mean, Tyreek, obviously a big step up from last week he was over 150 yards again, and even, Devin Achane, who, he's obviously been solidifying himself as that number one running back ever since he burst onto the scene, which he also obviously did pick up an injury. So it was kind of questionable for a while. Now it's been official. He's going to go on injured reserve. So that's definitely going to be a big blow for the Dolphins moving forward for the position they've been in right now. But obviously, I'm gonna have to slowly start eating my words on this Tua MVP talk. All the position I really expected him to be in moving forward. It's kind of, I wouldn't say falling apart for the Dolphins, but it's not really. I mean, they're not really living up to the expectation they kind of set for themselves after a really blazing start. And for the Giants, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I mean, it was a loss, still a decent showing, sure, against a good team, but I mean, can't really say much. It's still looking pretty bleak for them moving forward.
All right, now moving on to the next game, which was a complete shutout from, pretty embarrassing win from Bill Belichick. I mean, a loss for Bill Belichick. The New Orleans Saints, they completely dog walked the New England Patriots this whole game. And you know how I said my stuff about Mac, that the beginning of the start of the season, he was playing decently well. They just couldn't get the job done. And more games to come. Mac Jones is just falling apart. Started that Cowboys game, he just didn't look well. Same with the next game, did not look great at all whatsoever. And this game, now looking at this game, I think this is the design for the Patriots and Patriots fans to see, and Mac Jones is the answer for this. I mean, when you really want to put the statistics down, I mean, Mac Jones has already thrown 4 pick sixes in his time in New England. Tom Brady only threw 4 total his whole career. So that's kind of like a big downgrade when we really look at this. Because Mac Jones, he looked like the seemed to have hope his first 2 years with the Patriots. Really looked like he'd be a hope, but this season's really depicting what the quarterback situation with the Patriots. Now looking at New Orleans, they look pretty decent. Derek Carr had an okay game. The defense was really stepping up here, which led to for the offense to capitalize off this. Obviously, the defense looked great. The Saints looked great the whole game.
So we'll move it into an AFC North matchup in the Ravens and the Steelers, and I mean, it was a pretty ugly game overall, especially in the first 3 quarters. It was pretty slow going. Not much offense, of course, especially with Matt Canada's offense. Can't ever expect much from him. But I mean, to start, it looked like the Ravens were just going to run away with this. They were the only ones actually really getting anything going. It kind of just waited until the fourth quarter, where slowly the Steelers defense was really stepping it up, and I mean, they would obviously inch their way over little by little and ended up taking the lead, of course. And of course that big touchdown to George Pickens, which I know for you it's always hit or miss whether you start him or bench him on fantasy. Got you tough again this time, but that connection really started going for him and Pickett. So it was a great sign for the Steelers. I mean, still overall it was an ugly win. You kind of really still expect. I mean, honestly, Steelers fans probably wouldn't have minded taking an ugly loss this week, considering the rumors that Matt Canada could have been on his way out after a poor showing this week. So, but I mean, regardless, like I've been saying about a lot of these teams, it's a step in the right direction for the Steelers. Hopefully, this turns a page for Matt Canada. You never know, but honestly, at the way it's been looking, a pretty mediocre AFC North, the Steelers might have something to work with from here on out. But as for the Ravens, I mean, Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's been doing solid. Don't get me wrong. It's honestly been a big part on his receivers. The Ravens have been dropping balls like no one else in the league. It's kind of been on them more than anything. So a lot of regrouping is going to be needs to happen in Baltimore if they're going to keep up in the North.
Yeah, now moving on to a team that seems to be kind of going back to the same direction they have from the past years, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Arizona Cardinals. This game started showing Joe Burrow finally to look like his old self again, back to his normal state. And Jamar Chase, hey, he's always open, and he's finally looking well again. Same with the run game. Joe Mixon had a pretty decent game today, just 20 yards shy of 100 yards. So it's looking good at them. Although, this was a very, very close and tight game between these two teams. And, with the Arizona Cardinals, they're able to keep games close. They're able to keep games close. It's just them not being able to finish. And this proved it again. No matter who the Cardinals played, they're going to manage to keep the game close, whether they win or lose. And honestly, they showed that against my Cowboys. They showed that against the Niners too. Showed it against all these teams I played. Cincinnati, they're finally starting to regroup again. Joe Burrow's looking great. The whole offense is looking pretty okay for the most. O-line, and take it or leave it, to be honest. But it's improving for the most part. Defense is starting to look a little better towards the second half. Defense started to wake up a bit more, but then from a close game to, more of a 2-possession game. And, this is a good sign for Bengals fans. They could possibly, sneak in to a wild card spot, or who knows, with the Baltimore Ravens situation. And, with the Steelers looking a little okay too, which, we'll get into that later on in this video. Cincinnati is finally working their way up, and it's looking really good because obviously, we expected Joe Burrow to be MVP. That's obviously, not going to be the question here. But for Joe Burrow, he's looking good again. It's finally looking good for the Bengals, finally to regroup once again. Run game's looking great. Everything about this team is finally working their way up. It just all depends if they can keep this consistency going.
Yeah, so moving into my Rams game this week, I mean, honestly, I'll take this result if I'm being honest. I mean, sure, it kills me knowing that, to see how close we kept it, knowing that we could have beat the Eagles. We really could. And, I mean, it's still gonna pain me knowing that, but at the end of the day, it was a great result. I mean, you see everything that the Eagles have been doing. I mean, sure, say that they've been on a downward spiral. They're still 5-0 at the end of the day, and I mean, this kind of gives me this shows me two things about both teams. I mean, for one, the Rams are really looking positive, trending in the right direction. I mean, sure, that Bengals loss is, its own little outlier that really does bug me, but the other two losses are against the two top teams in the NFC. Can't do much about that. We kept it close against both of them. So I really did like seeing how, overall, how we kept it close. I mean, sure, it was just those two late field goals while they were running the clock out that this could have been left at a 6-point game. Would have been nice to see that. Obviously, just to throw it out there, that debate with the tush push play. I mean, I know you and me have our own way of looking at. It's got to be the stupidest debate for people to think that play should be banned. It's just, I mean, if the play is working, why wouldn't you run it? I mean, it was getting run every single time they had short yardage against us, and you could see why. With the top O line like that and a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds, why wouldn't you do that? I guess, a positive for me at first was, hey, we were keeping Devontae Smith in check. It was he wasn't getting a production, but of course, I mean, that was kind of by design. The ball was kind of getting forced to AJ Brown this time. So I mean, there's so much you could think about for this game. I guess the biggest part, about AJ Brown for me, the plays with Derion Kendrick. I mean, a corner that I have talked so much good about. I just lift him up with all the praise, but it's the stupid penalties that really start killing him, and it really, it starts getting to you. I mean, we after that touchdown to Puka Nacua that looked like it was going to give us all the momentum going into halftime, right at the end, it has to come back to kill us. That, of course, Derion Kendrick leaves Brown wide open to pick up like a good 30 yards, and then of course penalty to give him even closer, and then the penalty in the end zone to really top it off, and an easy tush push to get him to tie it at halftime, or get him in the lead. I don't remember exactly how it was, but point is, Eagles had all the momentum going forward, and as I've been saying all year, this team seems to collapse in the second half, and it wasn't the collapse I would have expected. They just didn't score from that point on, but just really need to work on that second, carrying over the positivity from this first half, because if we keep playing like this in the second half, kind of being just that first half team, it's going to really kill us moving forward, especially playing good teams. Obviously, we have the Cowboys coming up in a couple weeks. It's something that they really got to clean up, but regardless, at the end of the day, it's a really positive, I guess you can't really say much, but it's a positive way to lose, and it's a great step in the right direction moving forward, as I don't think we're going to be playing teams. I mean, this game against the Eagles is probably one of our toughest games moving forward. So I'm feeling okay the way this team's been looking.
Now moving on to two teams that were struggling this whole season, the Jets and the Broncos. Now, this is another game that obviously could have gone both ways with the state of both these teams. I mean, we saw Russell Wilson, who we said we expected Russell Wilson to have a pretty good season, and aside from all the drama with the Broncos, Russell Wilson is having himself a season. He's not playing bad at all. It's really just the coaching. The Broncos, Sean Payton is not really getting it done. The defense went from going from last year, keeping them in the game because of their offensive struggles, and now this time it's the opposite. The defensive struggles, offense is kind of picking up. Wilson is doing all he can. He's doing all he can, but it's not clicking out. Sean Payton is not really doing much. And then looking at the Jets coaching side, Nathaniel Hackett, who was the coach last year of the Broncos, and with the stuff that Sean Payton talking about him, that worst coaching he's ever seen, came back to bite him in the ass. I mean, sure, you can say your stuff about Nathaniel Hackett. You can say he was a bad coach. He's not that great of a coordinator. You can say all that one. But for Jets fans and football fans, you should be kind of glad for Hackett for winning against the team, his former teammate coach, from now the coach who was talking bad at him. Sure, it's still a lot to go on with this Jets offense. I mean, Zach Wilson had a pretty mediocre game, two subpar. It's still like 199 yards and an interception. He was struggling a bit as well, Zach Wilson. All the love for Zach Wilson's been getting. The situation that he's in right now, he's not doing good. The run game is what's keeping him, in the playing field. I mean, Breece Hall almost ran for 200 yards. Breece Hall, amazing that what he's doing for this Jets team is really what's keeping him alive in this game. And same thing with the Jets defense. This defense, aside from the past games where they couldn't get it in, like the Chiefs game, they most likely could have won that game realistically, but hey, it's past. You really can't do much of that. The officials are gonna make bullshit calls here and there. It's always gonna happen. But but the Jets keeping up with them, and then on this side, finally, keep the Broncos secure from the second half. I mean, the forced fumble on Wilson was what got them to win, and the defense is really playing with their hearts out. And then Zach Wilson, I still don't think he's the answer, but nonetheless, it's still a great win for the Jets.
Let's move it into the last game in the late window with the Chiefs and the Vikings, and honestly, a lot closer than I would have expected it. I mean, sure, I guess attributed to the Chiefs defense, kind of still a little debatable to see, and of course, I mean, the supporting cast from Mahomes still really hasn't been that. It really hasn't been there. I mean, all he really has is Travis Kelce, and obviously you can see with, I mean, of course, he got a touchdown, nearing 100 yards. Sure, just that weekly production you expect from Kelce. But aside from that, nothing really doing. I mean, sure, Pacheco had a relatively good game, sure, but regardless, I mean, offensively, right about what you expect from the Chiefs. But when it comes to the defense, I mean, sure, that kind of is where it kind of falters. I mean, not a bad game for them, of course, but I mean, I guess you also attribute it to the great. I mean, I wouldn't say great, of course, for the great offense for the Vikings, but I mean, their offense is their bright spot, of course. When you think about Kirk Cousins, still all things considered, is having a great season. Justin Jefferson, who obviously went down, he's going to go on injured reserve, so that's going to be a big blow to them moving forward. Well, I believe we'll be talking about a little more about that in the coming moments, but still, I mean, he did get that production in this game, and of course Jordan Addison, who gives you your big push in fantasy, and even with Alexander Mattison kind of having a surprising good game after a pretty slow season up until this point, it's I mean, offensively everything was clicking for the Vikings. It just had to come against one of the best teams in the AFC, so. They kind of did everything right, kept it close against a really good team. Came down to the last possession. They were going to have a chance to maybe work a game-winning drive, but just wasn't enough. It kind of still looking bleak for the Vikings, but I will say this, like it kind of been saying with a lot of teams, it is a step in the right direction for the Vikings. So we'll see. Got a pretty easy game next week, so we'll see what they can work on with this.
Yeah, and I'm moving on to my game. That was just a complete shit show of this Dallas Cowboys team. Same old Cowboys. This was a very embarrassing win. This was another humbling wake-up call from this team. All this week talking from Dak with the whole team saying, "Oh yeah, we're hungry, this and that," and the Niners just didn't seem to worry about it. Oh, Brock Purdy completely walked us. He walked us this whole game. Defense was not there. Dak Prescott. My loyalty with Dak Prescott is going to be with him forever, but I think at some point or later, and I've talked about this before before the season started, that this year, or even if there's a chance for the following year, this is going to be the final year or the next year that's going to depict Dak Prescott's tenure with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the bare minimum is set. At this point, the bare minimum is if you can barely make it into the wild card now with the terms of this team, right? Now, looking at this team, at the offseason, the minimum was get to the championship at most. That's it, you know. I obviously hyped up my team. You know, it's always good to hype up your team, right? And obviously be logical about it, right? Every single analysis, every single team expect the Cowboys to be great. But it's games like this. We saw with the Cardinals. We lose to a team that we're supposed to win against. Lose. No, this is another game. And I talked about this in last week's recap. This is going to be a message for both teams going against each other, same caliber, to prove it. I expected, let alone a close game. No, it was not. San Francisco clearly proved that San Francisco owns us. They've owned us. They've beat us the last 3 games. There's nothing I can say about that. The Cowboys, the defense is just not there. I claim them to be a great defense, even the number one from the most part. The whole guys claim to be the number one. You can't do that if you can't even contain a great and probably the number one offense in the league round. Number one team, you know? They're obviously the number one team. This is an embarrassing game. No run game. We had all our starters at O-line. No blocks. Dak Prescott just couldn't, I can't even fathom it that, like, this is generally the next game that I actually got pissed off about Dak. And obviously, I wanted to try and defend him so bad, but I just couldn't, I even had exaggeration like, Trey Lance might could start this season. Who knows? Maybe. And in the 3 picks he threw, I mean, I tried pushing away the interception narrative, but it seems to come back. I mean, sure, the first pick wasn't his fault, right? Off the receiver's hands, but the next 2 were clearly his fault. Overthrown it a bit and then straight to the defender. I mean, at that point, I really couldn't defend that. But a lot of regrouping needs to get with this team. Realistic. We're going against a Chargers team that has a great offense, really great offense, the same caliber as, sure, the Niners and the Cowboys, you can say. But again, with the Chargers, I'll get into that in the recap. But obviously, we're going against them. It's another team we cannot look down upon. And this is going to say a lot of things. Cowboys, they have one bad game and then they bounce back, repeat the process. It can't be having that. I mean, Dak, I just have no words for that. The defense, the loss of Trayvon does hurt, and then all our other injuries with Leighton Vander Esch, Kevontae Turpin, DaRon Bland most likely, and Donovan Wilson. Those are going to hurt our defense really bad moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, not a better way to put it right there, man. But obviously, we'll move it right into Monday night. Close out the recap with honestly a pretty lackluster game in this one in itself. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch it much. I was paying attention to the postseason baseball, but I mean, I guess your Jordan Love takes are kind of starting to really solidify themselves as probably pretty fraudulent, man. I mean, he just hasn't been living up to the expectation. I mean, sure, he started off so great with, a great win against the Bears and the great comeback against the Saints. But apart from all that, I mean, a 2 interception game here. I mean, he had every opportunity to beat the Raiders here. I mean, Garoppolo was playing really subpar. I mean, sure, I guess the big thing you got to say is that the Raiders defense is actually looking pretty good if all things considered. I mean, Max Crosby, as much, I mean, obviously I didn't pick him myself, but I would always talk about this. Max Crosby is always a sleeper defensive player of the year pick, and he shows that here. I mean, he played a hell of a game. He kept Jordan Love in check, but of course, I mean, Jordan Love was doing a lot to hurt himself in his own right. I mean, overall, the Packers offense is looking really stagnant and just not much to say. I mean, the Raiders, they're having some good wins, sure. I would say it's more that they're kind of getting carried by that defense, which I know what the narrative has always been, that the Raiders never really have a good defense. Probably not rankings wise, it's not looking yet, but I mean, it's looking like great improvement, and you never know for the wild cards in the AFC. Never know if the Raiders could probably stick a run, and they might even get to sneak in moving forward. But of course, that's gonna wrap up our recap for Week 5. Christian, our predictions obviously took a little dip from last week. It wasn't as good. Took a heavy dip. I mean, it's going to be hard to replicate my big 14-2 week last time, but of course, rough on you, 7-7. Another pretty midweek. I went 9-5, which of course, that gave me 2 more onto the disagreements. I swept those disagreements, so I'm up to 7-4 on that. And of course, you see our total predictions up there. I'm ahead by 3, so we'll see how that moves forward. Obviously, right now our predictions for week 6 will be up here. So Christian, I'll let you get started on what you got for a big game on Monday night.
Yeah, so the Cowboys going against the Chargers. This is going to be another game where they really need to pick it up. This is a Chargers team that offense, it's great. It's a great offense. Kellen Moore, that we let go. He has a great offensive mindset. But there's a reason we let him go. He couldn't get the job done. Most of the play calling was, highly absurd. The defense of the Chargers, they tend to, let up a lot of points. And looking at the Cowboys offense, Dak Prescott, the three picks last game was horrible. You could say everything you want. He had a horrible game. It's probably the worst game he's had in his career. The defense of the Cowboys is good. It has the players it needs. But our injuries are really going to hit us once again. And the play calling. McCarthy running the Texas Coast offense, right? The variation of the West Coast offense heavily relies on the pass game. And we're doing the complete opposite of that. Our pass attempts per yard is about 6, which is very low for the Cowboys when we have weapons like CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks. We're not utilizing at all whatsoever, and Michael Gallup. CeeDee Lamb barely getting any targets. I really have no idea. I don't know what to say about that. He's our number 1, and we're not utilizing him at all whatsoever. Dak Prescott, he just couldn't get the ball out on time in that game. And this game's really going to depict it once again. But the Cowboys have one bad game, and they bounce back right after, right? But this is a Chargers team that's not to be looked upon at all whatsoever, and the Cowboys have many times on looking down upon teams like that. But this cannot happen on this Monday nighter. If we really want to show out getting a high contention, this needs to start right now. Defense needs to get on their heels. Dak Prescott, he needs to lock in once again. All right, now moving on to my highlight game of the week, which is another game in London, the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. Now, these are two teams that are starting to struggle a bit in a way for, both teams with the Ravens. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he's doing good. He's finally starting to regroup with himself, starting to look pretty great again. Obviously, the loss of J.K. Dobbins is really struggling, but Justin Hill and Gus Edwards, that 1-2 punch with them starting to work out just a little bit there. But the receivers for these Baltimore Ravens, they couldn't catch for nothing last game, and this is what really impacted them towards the end of the game, that they couldn't win it because these dropped passes. They dropped about 3 touchdown passes worth of that, and then like over 100 yards of those dropped passes. Really affected Lamar, and then obviously the pick with that led up on. And then looking at the Tennessee Titans as well with Ryan Tannehill, he's not getting the job done. The Titans are really starting to struggle more a bit. The run game, obviously, running with Henry most of the time, it's not going to work out. I mean, especially with the life expectancy of running backs in today's day and age of the NFL, they're not going to last that long at all. And Derrick Henry is starting to get worn out more and more. And obviously, the offense runs around Derrick Henry. And if he can't get going, the offense cannot get going, and it puts more pressure on the defense. And that's exactly what we saw against the Ravens. But that's the reason for that for the Ravens, because of the receivers and the drop passes. This is going to be a very close game, in my opinion. It's going to be a really close game between these two teams. They're really struggling a lot. I expect it to be at least a little bit of thriller towards the end. But obviously, if Derrick Henry can't get involved, this Tennessee Titans, they're really going to struggle a lot.
Yeah, of course, that's always been the narrative for us. Is a disagreement for us. I am going to expect Derrick Henry to get going, so we'll see how that does end up. But as for my game this week, all hopes are that this will be a get-back game, a good bounce back for the Rams. Sure, like you always say, never know with the Cardinals. This can be a trap game. The Rams do usually have a good track record against the Cardinals at home, except these last 2 years. The Cardinals have just been playing the Rams really good. Did obviously get to witness a absolute disaster class in person last year when the Cardinals came to town. But I honestly do expect Dobbs to kind of he'll play all right. I expect some struggle, but I expect him to play all right. I mean, we got Hollywood Brown. The injury to James Conner is gonna hurt them, though. I mean, they have had a relatively solid run game. With the loss of Conner going to IR is gonna give a hit to that, in my opinion. And their defense. What can you really say about them? We just mentioned it earlier. I mean, off the top of our head can really mention anyone on their defense. So hopefully saying that doesn't come back to bite me and someone just has a generational game. But overall for the Rams, I really do hope that we get that we bounce back. I mean, we played such a good team in Philly, and we played positively against them. So I'm expecting Stafford to, you know, set himself back. Hopefully the O-line can, you know, have find themselves in some way, because that was just an absolute disaster last week. Hopefully it's some sort of bounce back there. And of course, Cooper Kupp, which I didn't even talk about him in the recap. I don't know what I was thinking, but I mean, you know, what a great game for him to come back. I'm expecting him to, you know, really pick up on that pace. Him and Puka, you know, they both had great games. I'll expect both of them to really pick up where they left off. So, you know, of course, I'll take the Rams here. Really expecting a great showing for them. And as for my highlight game, I'm gonna go with the Lions and the Buccaneers. Really, a game probably no one really had highlighted at the start of the season, but you know, we see Baker Mayfield, man, just what a surprise to see him really balling out. Of course, you and me really love to see it. Love to see Baker succeeding. Love to see Jared Goff succeeding too, man. I mean, 2 former Rams. It really fills me with joy to see 2 guys I would you know, love to root for. Even Baker before he was a Ram, but you know, like I said, you know, a battle of 2 former Rams. I'd expect the Lions to come away with this, no doubt. I mean, they're obviously the narrative being their defense has improved so much. I know we both always talk about it with how last year that was their Achilles heel. This year they really got to fix that. And you know, I think, you know, offensively they do match up really well, but it's that defense from Detroit that really I do expect them to really keep Baker down to, you know, below average numbers, unfortunately, but really do expect the Lions to come away with a pretty strong victory in Tampa, which, you know, they are debuting those creamsicle jerseys, so that will be a nice sight to see there. But of course, that wraps up our preview into next week. Hopefully these predictions stay on that upward trajectory, but not much more to be said. Obviously, hope to see what news comes out, but apart from that, you know, thank you guys for watching. Always appreciate that support, and we'll see you guys Sunday morning, barring anything else.